ABC 10 News at 6 starts now.
Tonight, hundreds of people are sitting in San Diego County jails waiting for jury trials that are on hold because of the pandemic. Good evening. I'm Steve Atkinson. ABC 10 News investigative reporter Jennifer Kastner interviewed DA Summer Stephan over concerns that justice is being delayed.
We started looking into this story after the wife of a man who's locked up in a San Diego jail emailed us begging for help. She wrote that for more than a year he has been waiting for his day in court, but there is no telling when that will be. ABC 10 News is not sharing personal information from this viewer's emails. Her husband fears retaliation. She writes in part, "He was wrongfully accused of a crime. I do not have the money to bail him out. Most of the other men incarcerated with my husband have been told to expect no further steps in their cases until early next year." He's been locked up at George Bailey Detention Center for several months and is one of the many who were scheduled to be tried in front of San Diego County juries until they were halted in March because of the COVID-19 threat.
These criminal defendants have a right to a fair and speedy trial. How do you uphold that Sixth Amendment constitutional right in the middle of a pandemic?
Upholding those constitutional rights is so important to us, but these requests are based on these very unprecedented times.
San Diego County District Attorney Summer Stephan stated that around 2,500 jury trials have been postponed. ABC 10 News filed a public records request for details on all the people who are waiting to be tried by jury. What we got back was a list of thousands of defendants. The majority are out of custody, but the DA confirmed that right now there are roughly 360 felony defendants and 50 misdemeanor defendants sitting in jail for an indefinite period of time until their trials can happen.
Most of the cases have received what we call probable cause hearings, where a neutral party, a judge, has heard the evidence and believes that it is sufficient to continue to hold them.
DA Stephan said most of the felony defendants are being held on very serious violent offenses, and same with those being held on misdemeanors.
Most of those are domestic violence where there is a danger to the victim or multiple DUI offenders.
The number of defendants has dropped dramatically that are normally housed in our detention facilities.
Superior Court presiding Judge Lorna Alksny recently told ABC 10 News that she's been working with the DA's office, the Public Defender's Office, and the Sheriff's Department to lower the jail population of nonviolent cases and release the elderly and others with compromised immune systems. Close to 3,700 inmates are currently housed, a 20% reduction since the start of the health crisis.
What do you say to the defendants, though, who are in custody, who claim their innocence, and in the eyes of the law are innocent until they are proven guilty, but they are being held indefinitely?
We give an opportunity for them. The only thing that we cannot have is a jury trial right now.
When you can't even go to a restaurant to eat, the idea of bringing hundreds of people in to sit into a room together is not recommended.
Courtrooms are being retrofitted with protective measures like plexiglass barriers, but jury trials are in limbo until at least mid-September, maybe longer, depending on how COVID numbers trend.
We are all very, very anxious and looking forward to having jury trials. It's the best of our democracy.
Until then, inmates and their loved ones, like the wife we first told you about, are at the mercy of the virus. This waiting game is killing us both. The DA added that once jury trials resume, they will prioritize serious violent felony cases and defendants who are approaching their maximum sentence. Jennifer Kastner, ABC 10 News.
If you have a local story of delayed justice during the pandemic, we do want to hear from you. Email us at tips@1010@10news.com. San Diego County is getting closer to coming off the state's monitoring list. We need to have a case rate of less than 100 to come off that list. We are just above that number at 101.2. Today, our county public health officer, Dr. Wilma Wooten, explained what would need to happen to stay off the list.
We have to be off for 3 days, and then after that 3-day period, we have to be off for another 14 days. And on the 15th day, schools, grades 7 through 12 can open.
Elementary schools can submit waivers to the county to try and reopen. Right now, the county is reviewing those waivers for approval before they get sent back to the state. Schools are the only sector that will open once we are no longer on the monitoring list. San Diego's 14-day rolling average for positive COVID tests has dropped below 5%. The average continues its downward trend. That's getting the region now closer to where it was months ago. Today's numbers help drive that average down as the county only reported 182 new positive cases. That's about 3% of all tests reported. The county also reported 8 new deaths. That brings our local total to 602. President Trump seems pleased with Joe Biden's decision to name California Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate. During today's White House briefing, the president even called Harris his #1 draft pick. Biden made the announcement on Twitter this afternoon, and his social media team then shared a photo of him telling Harris the news over Zoom. Biden had previously committed to picking a woman for vice president and said today that Harris is, quote, the best person to help me take this fight to Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Harris and Biden squared off during the Democratic debates to determine the party's presidential nominee. She is the first black woman to join a major party ticket and the third woman to serve as a VP candidate for a major political party. Biden and Harris are expected to make their first appearance as running mates coming up tomorrow. Harris becoming the vice presidential candidate also leaves open her Senate seat here in California, meaning that Governor Gavin Newsom has to decide how to fill it. He now has two options. He can either appoint Harris as a replacement who would serve out her term until 2023, or he could call for a special election. The LA Times reports that decision may be a precarious one for Newsom, with implications for his future political ambitions. He's likely to face pressure to appoint a woman of color to that seat as well. Happening now, another protest outside the La Mesa Police Department. Our ABC 10 News reporter Laura Acevedo joins us live from La Mesa on this story, where activists say they want more consequences for a former officer who was involved in a controversial arrest back in May. Laura.
And that protest scheduled to start now any minute. There are about 20 to 30 people gathered here outside of the La Mesa Police Department headquarters, and they were out here earlier this afternoon, the same activists, talking about why they wanted to come out here to protest. Now, they think the La Mesa Police Department is being vague about former police officer Matt Dadges. Dadges was the officer seen in this video shoving Amari Johnson during an arrest back in May. Now, last week, the department announced Dadges no longer works for them, but Johnson and other community members say they want more information. The charges against Johnson were eventually dropped. Now, activists want the former officer arrested and charged for the incident.
I don't want anybody else's rights to be, pushed aside. I'm not 3/5 of a human. I'm a full human. I'm just like you. So, until we're treated like that, we're going to keep on speaking up.
And again, people are starting to gather here, and we are waiting. There is going to be some speakers, we were told, and there are also some counter protesters that are expected. There was a similar protest here about 2 weeks ago that did remain mostly peaceful. We did see a couple of police officers that have moved their car to the outside of the police department parking lot. We are going to stay out here and bring you the very latest about how this protest develops. Reporting live from La Mesa, Laura Acevedo, ABC 10 News.
We will look for those updates. Laura, thank you. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, low-income seniors would visit their doctor for treatment. But as our ABC 10 News reporter Steve Smith tells us, an El Cajon clinic has made life easier during this quarantine by putting its office on 4 wheels.
Doug Roberts usually visits St. Paul's PACE for treatment about once a week.
PACE stands for Program for the All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly.
Dr. Victor Lee says when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, a change had to be made in the way they cared for their patients.
They used to come to a clinic for services, they still do, but because of self-isolation and some people have fear of being in a crowded place, we have to find a way to take care of them. This is our answer to that.
Their answer is called the Roving Clinic.
Our staff came up with some creative ways. And one of the ways we did was to create and convert a van into a clinic so we can go to their home to take care of them.
The van is considered a safe place.
130/80.
Medication helps?
Yes, it does.
The doctors can examine them, the nurses can do the vital signs. Whatever we can do in the clinic, we try to replicate inside the van.
Now, there are currently about 1,000 patients in the program, and many, as Dr. Lee describes, as frail with multiple medical problems. But so far, the Roving Clinic has been a lifesaver.
Have heart problems, high blood pressure.
They love it. We go to their place, We park outside the apartment, or sometimes even in the parking lot somewhere. There's privacy, we take care of them right there.
For the elderly, the roving clinic is medical care with peace of mind.
We're all done here.
In El Cajon, Steve Smith, ABC 10 News.
St. Paul's Place currently has a couple of vans in use for their roving clinics, but the goal is to get a new, larger, customized van as well.